pause the music. All right. Okay. So this will be like a little mini reaction. That way I can eat and stuff is happening on screen. So this is fighters related, so it's still on topic. This is There will never be another Dragon Ball Fighters, and this was 2 months ago. I think this was like right before the newest patch came out. So let me test the audio. Okay, yeah, you guys can hear it. Alright. Alright, so this is Maximilian's video on why there won't be another Dragon Ball Fighters. Let's go!
I'd like to propose a concept. We will never get a Dragon Ball Fighters ever again. Which is a bittersweet thing to say. That game was so special.
I wonder... Okay, so immediately I want to pause, right? I'm thinking, like, is he going to take the route of, like, in terms of, like, popularity and, like, community growth, there won't be another Fighters? Because, honestly, I can agree with that. Like, when Fighters came out, it broke records. It brought together so many different communities together. Like so many like fighting game communities came together for this game, right? You had your classic like OG players that like play like Street Fighter and all of them. They came to Dragon Ball. Of course, you had the anime fans from like the Bandai Namco side who played like a I hate this term, but like a fighting game. I know it sounds weird, but like the way it's used nowadays, it annoys me. But like for this discussion, we'll just say a real Dragon Ball fighting game, right? This is their first time experiencing it. All the Arc System Works people played this game because Guilty Gear Strive wasn't a thing yet. And BlazBlue, after BB Tag, there hasn't been a BlazBlue game like at all. So like you had the anime fans, the Arc System fans, the OG fighting game fans, you had the Bandai Namco people, fans, you had like even people like outside of the fighting game genre or just gaming in general played this game because it was Dragon Ball. Like if we're talking about like there will never be a Dragon Ball Fighters in like this, like if we're talking about that, then I agree.
In like so many ways. And I don't mean we're not getting a Dragon Ball Fighters 2. That I hope happens. That I legit hope actually happens at some point down the line. What I'm saying is the experience of Dragon Ball Fighters, its effect on the community. Its
okay, yeah, we're talking about the same thing then. Yeah.
Kind of being like a genre-defining thing that brought everybody together through something that it was almost impossible to not enjoy.
Like, and here's the thing. People got to remember, like, the state of the community at the time, or the FGC. Because, like, even, like, I'll say this. I'm very, like, at the time, I didn't know shit about the fighting game community. But, like, I, like, heard whispers and stuff like that. Well, not whispers, but, like, I was in and out, you know? And I believe at the time, like, fighting games weren't really in a great spot overall. Like, they were kind of, like, either meh or, like, a lot of the franchises were just, like, going nowhere. To my knowledge, I could be completely wrong, but that's, like, the vibe I got. And that's how everybody was talking about Fighters when it came out. They were like, this is going to revive fighting games. Like, this is it. Like, we're in a new age of fighting games. And then, of course, people later on was like, oh, yeah, well, Street Fighter 6. Like, when Street Fighter 6 got announced, Dragon Ball stocks went down. Because they were like, oh, yeah, this is the new era of fighting games. So, you know, that happened. But, like, in turn, like, at the time, I believe like not a lot of fighting games were like doing good, and Dragon Ball Fighters was like the perfect storm to like get people interested in the genre again.
It's one of those games of, yeah, like you just had to be there sort of situation. Even if we got a Dragon Ball Fighters 2, I don't think we're getting that again, man. I think that game was so unique in the fighting game space. It just created too many moments and was too effective as a game for you to like replicate that lightning in a bottle over again.
Yeah.
That's what I'm promoting. And granted, the game eventually got into a space that was really rough with like its final season and didn't leave people with a particularly good taste in their mouths. But I think that the impact of Dragon Ball FighterZ as a game in total is probably one of the craziest things I've ever experienced in my entire professional career of covering fighting games, you know? Granted, I had a lot of gripes with it, you know, netcode issues and things like that, especially in season 1, but so much of what DBFZ did to bring the entire community, to bring literally like a huge genre and swath of people into the genre that just wanted to get into fighting games because this game was the game for them, that brought together
God, that was the alpha build right there. Holy shit.
Damn Dragon Ball game that brought together Marvel vs. Capcom players looking for dirt and all this crazy stuff of how to...
Oh yeah, the Marvel vs. Hold on, I'm at you. Sorry, but the Marvel vs. Capcom community. That's right. They were another big proponent for why Dragon Ball FighterZ like exploded the way it did. Also, they need to bring this 18 skin back. I mean, it's never gonna happen, but this was one of 18's best colors right here, and then it never came back.
To like formulate teams of Dragon Ball characters that were going to be like straight nasty, you know what I mean? I find it funny that so many people try to use the argument, we hear it with Tokon in some games, though, there's too many team fighting games. I'm glad this is a solo fighting game and not a team fighting game, right? Where it's like, oh yeah, casual players, well, this is the terminology we hear a lot. Casual players don't want to learn 3 characters, you know? We hear this all the time. Yeah, these games are actually...
I don't agree with that statement. If you build a system that's easier to understand and have universal system mechanics that every character can use, both on offense and defense, I think a lot of casual players will be able to learn the game. And that's what FighterZ did. There's a lot of system mechanics in this game. Probably too much, but it's all for the benefit of having a large roster and having at the very least a good amount of universal things to do, to where it doesn't feel like you're jumping into like a 5,000 like mile pool, you know?
Super polarizing because players did not want to have to learn 3 characters on a team. Like that's just a very frequent take you hear across the board to Marvel vs. Capcom 2 style 3v3 fighting games, right? And yeah, you're right. Until you're not. I don't know if that's exactly true, man. Like
it's not true.
Board, like I think you're absolutely right. Until you have a game that people will just play no matter what. Until you have a game that makes...
I think the only tag fighter... Now, to be fair, I started my FGC or fighting game, not career, but like my catalog in 2018 with Dragon Ball FighterZ. And out of all the tag games that I've played, number one, foundationally, they're easy to pick up. Just foundational. They have way too many universal mechanics that applies to everyone to where it doesn't feel impossible. And second of all, the hardest tag fighter I've ever played is Skullgirls, and it's not even because the learning different characters is hard. It's because the players are so goddamn good at this game now.
It's like an impossible situation possible, and people didn't look at Dragon Ball FighterZ as like, when that game was coming out, people didn't look at that game as in like, oh, this legendary Dragon Ball game that we've been asking for the past 20 years, that's finally a reality. It's a 3v3 game. I think that's just too many characters.
Nope.
I think I'm just gonna pass. No,
nope.
Dude,
Nobody.
No one gave a shit. Like,
yeah.
Nobody cared. Every single person played it. Like, everybody that I knew to or talked to, like, everybody was playing that shit. Didn't matter how good or bad you were at fighting games. Didn't matter if you had to learn 6 characters, 3 characters, 2 characters, 1. It didn't matter, dude. Everyone just jumped into it because you had a reason. It's amazing. I gotta play this. I have to play this. It was the same thing with Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Why? Like, MVC2 felt like it was way too much until it wasn't. These games feel like they're impossible, insurmountable tasks of knowledge, of knowledge and information that you have to acquiesce through playing it. There's no way I'm ever going to be good at this until I just am. And it's like, because you played it.
The thing that I say about fighting games is like, for me, they have to click, right? For me, I can't just pick up a fighting game and like play it until I get good. It like a fighting game has to click with me. Like there's got to be something or some character or some mechanic or something that's like, oh, now I get it. You know, for Dragon Ball, I would say the thing that clicked for me was we're talking about season 0 or season 1. So I want to say, well, honestly, I don't even think I had that click moment for fighters until season 3 actually. Now that I think about it, because season 1, oh god, this is bringing it back. So I believe the entirety of season 1, and I think like halfway through season 2, I didn't have Wi-Fi, and I had to use my phone hotspot for internet connection for my console. So anytime I played online with fighters, it was just a mess. So I never really like took the game seriously because I knew that my connection issues would just like not actually matter in the end. Season 2 is kind of the same thing, and then the meta was also bad, so I stopped playing. Season 3 was when I really started to actually learn the game. And I think what clicked for me during that time was, this might sound weird, but UI Goku. Because I think before UI Goku came out, I was like, I definitely said that Fighters was my favorite Dragon Ball game, but I definitely wouldn't have said it's one of my favorite games of all time. Now I definitely think so. It's definitely within my top 15 games of all time. Maybe even top 10, because my game catalog is really low. But back then, I don't even think I would have said that at all. And then UI Goku came out, and at that point, he was probably undisputedly the best character in the game. But like at the time, a lot of the characters in that season were actually pretty decent. And so there was like a reason to learn a lot of different characters. And that's when I started playing Blue Vegeta, who was not technical, but he was a hard character to play at the time. And then Krillin got his beam assist, so he was able to work on different teams. And yeah, I just think like season 3 and UI Goku was like that click for me. Like the patch was good at the time. I still think season 3, 3.5 was probably the best season for fighters overall. So yeah. All right, sorry, I was talking too much. But yeah, I would say like season 3 around UI Goku's release is when the game actually started to click for me.
And you love it. The same thing kind of happened to Marvel vs. Capcom 3, where that game just sort of exploded in popularity over time. A ton of new players got into it, comparatively speaking, right? Not as big as Dragon Ball, but like, yeah, these big 3v3 games all felt like for a very long time, oh, people can't get into them because there's too many characters, until it's just a game that you have to play and you get into it no matter what. Dragon Ball was the game that sort of proved that shit. You will get people to play your game if it has enough hooks and promises of this being dope. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, I can play that, you know? To be real, I wouldn't be super down with a Street Fighter game being a 3D fighter. I wouldn't necessarily be like the most enthusiastic about that. I'm like, oh, that kind of really changes what Street Fighter is if it's a 3D fighting game. But would I be down to try it? Well, yeah. I mean, how are they going to do Street Fighter in actual 3D? How are they going to do that shit? There was a huge portion of DBZ fandom that didn't enjoy Dragon Ball FighterZ. Right, but we're not...
Wait, who? Wait. Hold on. I want to see
shit.
who.
There was
a huge portion of the Dragon Ball fandom didn't enjoy Dragon Ball FighterZ? Nigga, who? Well, actually, no. Now that I think about it, a lot. No. This actually makes sense. Actually, I was about to flame this motherfucker, but no, he's definitely right. Because you gotta remember, the last game before FighterZ was Xenoverse 2, and so a lot of the Xenoverse 2 players were going to FighterZ, and it was like a completely different ball game. So like, if we're talking about like that. Yeah, I can see what he's talking about. I think a lot of it died down by the time season 2 rolled around, because at that point season 2, it was kind of a dramatic shift at the beginning, And then because season 2 didn't get that many updates outside of just DLC characters, it gave a lot of time for the community to actually hunker down and figure out what kind of game Dragon Ball is, right? Because I think season 1 was a lot of like people just flailing around and doing shit, like outside of like the major tournaments, obviously. But like a lot of Dragon Ball in season 1 was just flailing around and doing dumb shit, you know, because a lot of people didn't know how to play the game. But then season 2 rolled around, and because there weren't like this promise of patches, just characters, it gave rise to a lot of different players that we now know in the community, but also a lot of different characters and overall players. Even though I think season 2 probably had the worst Steam numbers, like around season 2 was like where Dragon Ball Fighters got really bad, like numbers wise, but it still gave people like time to figure things out. And I think around the time season 2 happened, I think a lot of like the Xenoverse players either straight up left and gone back to Xenoverse 2, or they actually like they actually learned Dragon Ball Fighters. So like this part is true for season 1. I don't think this matters in season 2 onward.
Portion of DBZ fandom that didn't enjoy Dragon Ball Fighters, right? But we're not talking about like general Dragon Ball fandom, because dude, you're talking about how many people know who Jesus is. It's comparable, the amount of people that know who Jesus is know of Dragon Ball. So it's a little unfair. We're talking about Dragon Ball as a fighting game, and Dragon Ball is a fighting game. Dragon Ball Fighters greatly expanded like what the fighting game community is and the amount of people that actually engage with fighting games, bro.
Yeah,
there's going to be games like
undisputedly
Xenoverse that eventually appeal to a way more broad stroke audience, but like you were making lifelong friggin' Xenoverse fans. Now you were making, until they screwed it up, like lifelong Dragon Ball Fighters fans. Dude, these guys were gonna play this game for years, like years upon years, like religiously, you know? What I'm trying to say is that we are not getting that experience again, man.
Nope.
Like Dragon Ball Fighters is such a unique lightning in a bottle community situation. I have never seen that happen in the way that Dragon Ball Fighters sort of brought everybody together. In that way, I think that game like fulfilled every possible demand it could. I think even if you had a game like a One Piece game, which we've always theoretically thought of over the years, where like a One Piece fighting game could, just maybe could, be the next Dragon Ball Fighters 2. But still, I don't know if a One Piece fighting game specifically caters directly to the kind of audience.
Because like, here's the thing about One Piece. One Piece is definitely like my favorite, like, not my favorite, but one of my favorite anime franchises ever. And I still need to catch up on One Piece, but I'm a lazy asshole, okay? I'm lazy. What the fuck? How can I ban people? Or ban this bot? Dash, help me out. Dash, where are you? Oh, there it is. All right, sorry. What was I saying? Oh yeah, just in general, One Piece doesn't cater to a lot of people in the. Where are we? The East or the West? Fuck. Like outside of Japan, One Piece is not overly popular. Like it has a good amount of fans, but nowhere near the amount Dragon Ball has. And Dragon Ball is popular both in Japan and around the world, whereas One Piece is kind of like more Japan focused, and like the outside world is kind of like a secondary to that. So I don't think a One Piece fighting game would ever do as good as a Dragon Ball game.
That is looking for that dream match situational sort of need that Dragon Ball has had for so long. I want Android 17 to beat the shit out of Vegeta Blue. Like, you know, like that kind of like crazy dream match situation that people have been talking since like the friggin' 80s and shit like that. You sort of get that in a lot of those Dragon Ball FighterZ games or Dragon Ball games over the years, but not to a degree in the execution that FighterZ did. Like,
also, I want to point this out. To my knowledge, One Piece only has like 3 fighting games, and like that's not counting like any crossover games. One Piece has Burning Blood. They have, God, what other fighting game does One Piece have? Because a lot of the One Piece games are like story games or beat 'em ups. I can't think of another One Piece fighting game. I don't know. I have to look through. But yeah, One Piece just doesn't have the catalog that Dragon Ball does when it comes to fighting games, because you have the Budokai series, you have the Tenkaichi series, you have Radiant Blast, Sparking Zero, even back to like the retro era. Like there was a lot of like, I think it was like Super Dragon Ball Z or some shit, and then you had like the Final Bout, GT Final Bout game. So like Dragon Ball has plenty of fighting games that like people are familiar with. They're like, we need a modern version of that. Like, I don't know what One Piece fan is like saying like, we need a modern version of Burning Blood. Like, I don't think there's any One Piece fan that is saying that. Thank you everyone for making it this far into the video. Just gonna take a quick break to do some shoutouts. First, shoutouts to my French channels. Please consider checking them out as they provide a variety of content, so at least one of them will have something that you'll enjoy. Second, if you live near the York, PA area, please head down to Ready Up Gaming Lounge. It's a place where gamers from every genre can come together and play in a comfortable and chill environment. They are open from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. every day and hold dedicated events every week. For my channel's interest, they run Fighting Fridays, where for $5.30, you can play a multitude of fighting games with various players. They have big games like Street Fighter 6, Tekken 8, and Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, but they also have niche games like Dragon Ball FighterZ, Guilty Gear Strive, Rivals of Ether 2, and more. Finally, shout out to all my supporters on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. You guys really make doing content fun and worth pursuing. Alright, back to the video.
it's special, man. That's all I'm saying, is that it's special. I'm not underestimating One Piece, don't get me wrong. I still think it would be astronomically big if Arc System Works did that. But I don't think it satiates that demand the same way that Dragon Ball fans were looking for that from this Arc System Works game. You know what I mean? I just want to look up, I have my moment, my Dragon Ball FighterZ moment. Hold on a second. This is, when I think of my Dragon Ball, granted, I actually have a friggin' Evo moment for this, but this is not what I think of when I think of like memories of Dragon Ball FighterZ. This is the one that gets me, bro.
Bullshit! I literally backdashed to specifically avoid that.
Look at this game, man. Let's go, asshole! Ah!
Damn.
This game, dude.
DP and the instant kill.
This. I don't even need to like say anything. Like, just look at the presentation, like how clear and concise the characters are in the background. Just from like a visual fidelity standpoint, it's nuts, dude. This game is literally like a work of art. It is the pinnacle of fighting games. It's insane, it's crazy, it's hard to follow. It looks like it's running 1 billion miles a minute. It feels like the players that are actually good at this are actually Super Saiyans themselves, beating their bodies down to achieve like maximum results and shit. It like the energy of the game matches the absolute insane energy of the show. It's brilliant. it's actually brilliant. It also takes what is a formula that has already been tried and true that works, which is like the MVC2 formula and the Marvel 3 formula, and just amplifies it. It just goes, well, let's just make it crazy, dude. And
Outside of the TODs during season 1 and season 3, nowadays it's basically a Marvel where every character dies in 2 hits.
over
But
time,
yeah,
it gets crazier and crazier and crazier. Like, there's so much of Dragon Ball FighterZ that I I deeply resonate with, but also bugs the shit out of me because of netcode reasons, right? Like that's one of its biggest detriments in those first few years was that the netcode was true balls, having to deal with super dashes with 7 to 8 frames of input delay and all this kind of stuff. But it did get better over time, you know? Is it worth playing now? It's a much different game now than it was before, but yeah, I think it's, if you have not played this, you should absolutely be playing it, man. I think I had a literal Evo moment.
Vegeta has, if that connects. Oh, it did. Oh, it hit him. He's not dead. God. He's dead. But he has a full meter too. Wait a minute. No way. Oh! That's it! Oh!
Oh my god. I forgot about that. The keyboard, does it still do that? His keyboard was blue when he had 7. I don't know if, does that still happen? I'm pretty sure it's still yellow.
That's it! That's it! Bro! Bro! That was amazing! Bro! It was so quick too. Like you literally
The raw level 3s, baby.
The comeback was amazing. That was the best comeback. This is what you get at Evo.
Look how good this shit looks, brother!
Dude, I don't know what to press. Do not know what to press.
This guy's name is Huge Anus.
What the fuck?
It's fun to not everybody know how to TOD every character. I mean, yeah. Because guess what? All fighting games are the most fun in that space, dude. All fighting games in those first like couple of months are incredible.
Yeah.
Thinking it might be good, it is not good in this game.
Dude, yeah.
That's because everybody doesn't know how to play yet. I will say this. I think gaming as a whole, I want to say, are great when you don't know what you're doing. This might be a hot take, but I think for a majority of video games in general, they are more fun the less you know about the game. The more you know about a game, the less fun it becomes. Now, obviously, there are caveats to this, right? And through your own personal experience, you might disagree with me. But I think in general, the less you know about a game, the more fun it is, because the discovery portion of a game is so important to how you view a game going forward, right? And one of the reasons why, like in my example before, like FighterZ didn't really, like my click didn't happen until season 3, and that was because a lot of the roster was significantly better than what they were at launch, and I actually started to learn and discover things about the game that I never wanted to previously because of my connection issues and stuff like that. And so like that discovery period was so fun to me. And like I met one of my friends, Tack, who became my mentor. I met several other people through FighterZ just because I wanted to learn the game and play it. And also, you know, it's just like that discovery period, you can't replicate that. You know, you can always play a game over and over again and perfect it. You can replicate that, but you can't replicate that first playthrough of your game or those first couple hours, you know?
Hold on.
That's blood. It's not a red thing. Bring it on. Bring it on.
Sell, yell. Yo, that is unmatched. That is unmatched.
Dude. It's just Dragon Ball's a religion, okay? Like, you gotta understand, it's been around for so long. There's like Christianity, there's like several of these things. There's people that are Catholic, and then there's like Dragon Ball. It's a religion to people, dude. So when you have this game that literally, this shit is like, people are congregating, my brother. Like, it's special.
Yes.
Everybody dressed up as characters and shit. There's something about Dragon Ball that is super unique to just specifically a fighting game. And here's the thing, and here's where I'm like gonna try to bring this along. I saw this happen in real time, where it felt like people were trying to promote the idea that this is Dragon Ball FighterZ 2. Right? That Dragon Ball FighterZ was such an insurmountable game that it's going to be like impossible, but this game is probably going to do it. I saw it happen with Jump Force, funny enough, of old games, and I was like, bro, no. And then
What? Wait, people were that crazy about Jump Force? What? No way. No. No. That's cap. That's cap, bro. I mean, now knowing what we know now about Jump Force, it seems even crazier. But even at the time of its like announcement, I can't even think. I can't think of a single person that was like, "Yeah, this is gonna be on Fighters level in terms of like gameplay and presentation." I'm like, no, what the fuck?
We saw it happen again like a year ago with Sparking Zero, where a lot of people were sort of like, oh yeah, Sparking Zero is that game. It just has so many other characters. It's doing all of this stuff. It looks better. People think it actually looks better than Dragon Ball. And I had to remind people, and I'm like, no, dude, no, it will do very well. It will sell very well, but it is not meeting a demand that you think it is, dude. You're gonna get people to like enjoy the story mode of Sparking Zero, and that's about it. But then they're just gonna peace out. Like, they're not gonna stick around and want to see what happens and how it evolves and what characters are doing and look up a new patch combo videos and like all this kind of stuff that brings like a community together. It's not gonna be the game that does that, dude. I was having to
I actually disagree with this take. The problem with Sparking Zero, and in regards to like what he just said, is that the game was marketed as an overly casual broken game, like Tenkaichi 3 was, right? All these different characters, you know, the devs themselves said that, oh yeah, the game is unbalanced, right? Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta is going to beat the shit out of like 90% of the roster, but that's okay. That's how the game is supposed to be, right? The game comes out, it's exactly what people expected, and they hated it. Why? This character's broken. I don't like this character. Now, to be fair, there were system mechanics that were broken regardless of character strength. The character strength just made it worse, but there were fundamental issues with the system itself. But like character strength, patches, and stuff like that, like nobody gave a shit, right? Nobody cares. That I agree with. I don't agree with that Sparking Zero couldn't have been the game to connect to a wide audience similar to Fighters. I don't agree with that take because it was already doing that. Because it had its own mini tournament scene. You had people from Japan, like it was like a, I can't remember what live stream it was, but like before the game came out, they had like a bunch of like Japanese content creators play at Bandai Namco and stream them playing against each other in Sparking Zero. They even had freaking VTubers on there. Like they were trying to get Sparking Zero to everyone they could. It's just that now in this more competitive scene with online matchmaking being a pivotal thing in any game, really, it was just going to be a matter of time before somebody finds something broken and abuse it online. And that was Sparking Zero's downfall, right? They stuck to what they wanted and made a broken game and focused on like the story mode and like making the game look good, right? Without probably thinking about the repercussions of like having an unbalanced game. But when the game comes out and you let the public play for a certain amount of time, they're going to abuse anything they can to win. So that was the downfall, right, of Sparking Zero. It's just the downfall of Sparking Zero is it being a Sparking game, it being a Tenkaichi game. A Tenkaichi game will never work in this mainly online environment. It will never work. If Tenkaichi 3 released today, even with all its features and all that shit, but they added a ranked mode, online ranked mode into it, people would hate it. Regardless of the story mode, regardless of the extra modes, you know, it'll definitely probably have a higher player base than Sparking Zero, but people would hate it just the same.
Remind people like why that is, because like the game was not designed for that. It was sort of designed to be consumed and discarded. It was designed to be like, oh, we're just gonna get what
I don't agree with this take either, but
we have out of this and just peace out. You know what I mean?
I don't agree.
And that's what
I don't agree with this because Bandai Namco literally went out of their way to make sure as many people, they made sure to get as many people as they could onto Sparking Zero so they can preserve them for more DLC later and to keep the community going, right? That's why they announced like a season pass before the game even came out. They were like, hey, this game is going to release and this is our plan going forward. Now, they didn't have a release date for any of those DLCs, and people were starting to like get upset that it was taking so long. But they didn't create Sparking Zero just for that release, like the release numbers, and then they were like, all right, well, we're done with the game, we're gonna make Sparking Zero 2, like they did with the previous games. Like now we're in this more, like I said, this more competitive gaming market for both the player base and the dev side, because regardless of what you think about Sparking Zero, it was competing with other fighting games at the time. It was fighting for, you know, Xenoverse players, Fighters players, even fighting games that has nothing to do with Dragon Ball, right? There are Street Fighter fans that like Dragon Ball. There are Mortal Kombat fans that like Dragon Ball. So like they're competing against all these other fighting games, and fundamentally it was never going to work, because Tenkaichi cannot, the Tenkaichi formula cannot work in this current gaming space.
Special about Dragon Ball FighterZ, which is like lightning in a bottle situation. All communities come together. Every single person is here playing this game, like no matter what. To me, it's like such a genuinely special game that even if you get like a crazy game that's impossible, you're not bringing with it the religion of Dragon Ball, right? You're not bringing together such a huge amount of every community that is even outside of fighting games together to become fighting game fans, you know? You're not bringing along all the history of all that kind of stuff. People are like saying that about like a new Marvel vs. Capcom or Tokon, and I'm like, I don't know. It's just not. I do not feel that we're gonna ever get something that does what Dragon Ball FighterZ did. Dragon Ball FighterZ did for fighting games what Smash Brothers Ultimate did for Smash, dude. It's something that you have to sort of look back on.
Yeah.
With a realization now that it was truly a special time. It was truly a special moment.
Yeah.
That was this fighting game community and the genre as a whole. And to eventually get something that captivates people half as much as what Dragon Ball FighterZ did would be wonderful, right? We'll be more than enthused and emphatic to introduce that many brand new people into like the fighting game space. There was a thread that's
I don't even think it's that hard, you know? Cause like I would argue that Sparking Zero did that. Like at the very least, like up to its release and probably like a month after release. Right? It fell off way harder than Dragon Ball did. But that was because, you know, a lot of issues with like the system mechanics and like the content being worse than Tenkaichi 3. Like it had obvious problems. But I would argue that the hype for Sparking Zero up to its release was higher than Dragon Ball FighterZ was. I could make that argument.
Someone needs to shoot me up on Twitter that was literally talking about this, of like Dragon Ball FighterZ was such a special game. As you start witnessing some of this stuff, you start realizing how special it was. And let me try to figure this out. Oh, did Lotus just talk about this in general?
Yeah, even if people don't necessarily agree with my opinions about season 1 and 2 and stuff, you definitely miss out on a major community aspect where Dragon Ball FighterZ was the biggest game on the planet. It was the biggest game at every tournament. The tournaments were fucking ridiculous. Like just from a hype and community standpoint, you still missed out on a shit ton if you didn't join until season 3. The storylines, the rivalries,
everything.
Y'all wasn't there for Winter Brawl when Sonic was the best on the East Coast and Chris G was the best on the West Coast, and they met up in bracket in top 16, and Chris G stomped out Sonic Fox, and then Sonic Fox ran that shit all the way back to grand finals and 6-0 Chris G in that grand finals after resetting the bracket.
What he's saying is absolutely right, but there's a reason why what he's saying applies more to a Dragon Ball situation, a Dragon Ball Fighter situation, than any other traditional fighting game. And it's because Dragon Ball has a 40-year history of in-character, in-universe timelines that actually like match the energy of this shit to the video game itself. Because like Dragon Ball and the story of the characters and their growth over literally 40 years of history all build up to the same thing, where it's like, yeah, Sonic Fox pretty much represents this this literal like protagonist arc type of shit. There's literal like character arcs and stuff, like tournament arcs in the show, and actual tournament arcs related to players, which the players get boosted off, like where the players themselves feel that energy, and it just feeds into the overall narrative of everything, man. So it's just amazing, it's just freaking amazing, and it just builds upon itself. There's like a lore parallel to Dragon Ball as an existing religion, as a show, that was also to the game and its growth as a competitive video game, you know? Like the feedback loop was so positive. Everybody had issues with the game. Nobody liked holding block strings for fucking 18 seconds or some shit.
Yeah.
Everybody had issues, but we were still out here because things were great, man. Like the energy was off the charts for this shit.
Y'all wasn't there for final round when Sonic Fox and Goichi had that first to 10. You know what I'm saying? And Goichi won that shit 10-4. Goichi was killing everything in Japan. Sonic was winning everything in America. And then he was talking that shit back and forth. And Sonic Fox got on the mic and said, "Oh my wamo, Shinderu." And Goichi pulled up with the tag tech that you didn't know about yet. And Sonic was there with that Android 16 and that whack ass hitting Goku Black combo that we thought was overpowered, but it really wasn't when everybody thought Goku Black was top tier. And it turns out Super Saiyan Goku was better all along, like Nakio had been saying. Y'all wasn't there for Combo Breaker. Y'all wasn't there for CEO. Y'all wasn't there when Sonic.
I was a huge fan of Nakio. He was one of my favorite players to watch during the tournaments. And I don't know what happened to bro, but he kind of like disappeared off the planet.
Fox hit the lab and then came back with that Go Takes Kid Buu and Perfect Cell team and got his get back on Goichi. Y'all wasn't there for some of the power when Hook Gang God was a top 5 player in the country.
Hook Gang God.
Sonic Fox and Goichi in the same event. Y'all wasn't there.
Yeah.
Just go win 4 out of the 7 Dragon Balls.
This shit was crazy. Hook just like showed up out of nowhere.
And he just cooked
all of
him.
a sudden he starts showing up at like the New York locals and stuff and just starts wasting fools. It's like, holy shit, man. This is crazy. What the hell is going on?
And it was with Piccolo of all characters. Like, you gotta remember, Piccolo at the time was like rated as like one of the worst characters in the game at that time. And he clicked. He found out the sauce with Piccolo and he was cooking people. Like, when I say cooking, he was one of the best players on the planet at the time. Like, it was, he was that guy.
Y'all wasn't there when Gohan was mixing out of their shoes. Y'all wasn't there when Yamcha, who was considered a bottom 5 character, was put in the losers bracket. Y'all wasn't there when Bomb.
Okay, to be fair, I don't even think anyone thought Yamcha was trash at the time. I think he might be referring to now, but like at the time, like everybody thought he was good because of that assist. And because he had a level 1, level 3.
Level 3s on everybody in the LCQ. Y'all wasn't there for hit. Putting the hands on everybody. Nobody in Japan or America could take Sonic Fox when he was playing Hit Bardock at 16. You wasn't there. When the Kill Sage was wrecking shop all throughout season 2 with Broly. When big body characters was unplayable because they was getting fuzzy. Y'all wasn't there.
Yeah, the Kill Sage is another one of my goats, bro. I don't like Broly, but he made that nigga work. His Teen Gohan Broly Super Saiyan Goku team is one of the most fun teams to watch.
Yeah, there's so much, dude. There's so much that is like the history of that game that where people like propagate this next thing as being the next big hype game, right? Because clearly Dragon Ball FighterZ built upon the hype and excitement that was like the last big hype game, which was Marvel vs. Capcom 3. But then did it with like the most perfect franchise you can possibly imagine and turned it into like a crazy power level game, you know? The community responded in full, where in fact, it was obvious that it was destined to be the next Marvel vs. Capcom because it was way better than Marvel vs. Capcom at the time. So all of the big Marvel 3 players that were the big Marvel 3 players, most of them just shifted right over.
Yeah.
So it was like all the energy that people had for a potential next big hype game, Dragon Ball was there, and it was perfect. It was the game that was going to build all of these new rivalries and shit that Marvel 3 had. Marvel 3 had some of the craziest rivalries I've ever seen in FGC history, dude. Like, it was insane how many moments that game built in tournament, like still to this day. And it feels like Dragon Ball beat it because it just lived like a longer competitive lifespan because it got more support over time, of course, you know? You're never getting anything as special as Dragon Ball again. It was a unique moment. It was a unique time. It was a special game.
Yeah.
And it's just hard to ask anything else from like a Tokon or a new MVC or whatever, Street Fighter 7, Tekken 9, doesn't matter, whatever the hell else it might be, to match the energy of that shit. It really is hard.
It was literally the perfect storm. It was literally the perfect storm. But yeah, that was a good video. And yeah, I was done eating about halfway through, so we got that done. So let's shift gears back to Dragon Ball itself.